Good evening or good day, everyone, whenever you are watching this. And we are the last present for the year 2023. My name is Paolo Angelo Albay, and we will be tackling, as your presenters, the causative variable in second language acquisition. And yeah, let's go. But first, let's have our icebreaker. Yan. Our icebreaker is titled Share Your Story or SYS. Now for the mechanics or instruction, can anyone read? Yeah. So let's say you have read it in your um, recorded session, no? You can raise your hands to recite and you can use the in-call messages as well or the comments in this post in the G Classroom to put your answers regarding the question or photos that will be shown, and this will be part of your recitation. And take note, the first people to recite or send their responses will receive a Christmas gift. Wow. All right. Without any time wasting na, let's do this. All right. So first question. We have a picture here about the book of Abacada. It's quite a funny story in the chat. What do you remember about this book? Again, the question, what do you remember about this book? All right. You can use the in-call messages. If this is live, you can recite and pause this video, or you can chat your answers on this post in the G Classroom. All right, let's move on to the next. Thank you so much for those who answered. Great job. The second question is, if you will be given a chance to choose on learning your L2, what is L2? Second language. What would it be? All right. So choose a language if you would be given a chance. Of us, majority of us, our second language is the English language, right? And some of us, there are families who raise their child to speak in English while their second language became Filipino. And how I have encountered families like that, right? So if you will be given a chance, what will be your second? All right, again, you can recite it, pause this video, or use the in-call messages, or use the comment section in this post in the G Classroom, the Google Classroom. All right, assuming that you have already answered this question, great job. Thank you for answering this. And wow, we just knew that you are interested in this language and you want to learn it as your second language. Anyway, it's not yet over. You can still learn that language. Number three, a part of our icebreaker, our last question, sadly, is this. In the second language, let's say the English language, which of the following has more impact in your fluency in using the language? So when we say fluency or being fluent, being grammatically right, or you just really use the language in the right manners, in in observing the rules. So yeah, which of these four choices in below has impacted you much in being fluent in the English language? First choice is movies. Are you impacted by the movies the more you watch, right? Or are you impacted by the books you read, the novel, literary pieces? How about number three? Are you impacted by your teacher? Of course, this may be your English teacher. Wow. And lastly, are you impacted most by the music, the English music, the pop, right? Or any genre it is that is using the English language? Which of these four has impacted you in being fluent in your second language, which is the English language? All right. Again, you can recite, pause this video, comment in the in-call messages if this is presented, or you can comment on this post right after this video in the Google Classroom. All right. Assume that you have already answered one of these four. Well, that is really great to know. And we can really see and look you using the English language in more fluent way. Keep up the good work, classmates. All right. Now let's move on. Our icebreaker is finished. And here is now my co-presenter to present the report. Take it away.
So, everyone, my name is Kyla Valenzuela, and I'm here to report the causative variables. So, in this slide, you will see uh, the two keywords. These are the strength of the affective filter and comprehensible learning input. Next po. In order to acquire, two conditions are necessary. The first, comprehensible input, containing I plus 1 C structures a bit beyond the acquirer's current level, and second, allow or weak affective filter to allow the input in. So this means that acquisitions is likely to happen if there's a well-built language that is exposed the learner and the learner has less knowledge about it, or better, doesn't know it all. Simple logic says, what else can you learn if you already know it better? Empty your mind first again. Comprehensible input and the strength of filter are the true causes of second language acquisition. And according to Krashen, comprehensible input and the strength of the filter are the true causes of second language acquisition. So let's move on to language teaching. Does it help?
Thank you so much, my co-presenter, Kyla. Now, my name is Paolo Angelo Alvin, and I will be teaching you this, just part of these variables, just to have a deeper understanding and clarifications when it comes to language teaching. Now, first, before we know if language teaching helps, we need to know what is it for. Now, let me tell you this, language teaching methods or the processes that we use in teaching the language are just like fashions. Why? They come into existence, they are used, but also replaced. This is a sketch of this changing wind sense of foreign language teaching over the years. So let me tell you this, the language teaching in definition it is teaching the language, and more so it's about teaching the second language. But when it comes to teaching, we have our own strategies, right? We have our own methods. And in here in this text, we're seeing that there is a lot of ways to teach the language. Sometimes are used and sometimes are. But now, given that fact, what are we going to do with the teaching of the language? Is it beneficial? Is it a necessity? Let's see here. So before that, may I explain to you what is comprehensible input? Because we're gonna speak about this for a lot of time. Even for the next reporters, they will be mentioning comprehensible input over and over again. So let's define comprehensible input. Now, comprehensible input is language input that can be understood by listeners, us or them, despite them not understanding all the words and structures in it. Let me give you a feeling or let me give you a situation. It was like know or understand some of us when we are watching Korean novelas, right? K-dramas, sometimes or all the time we don't really understand what they are saying, especially when there is no subtitle. But there is this thing that, oh, I get what he said, right? That is input. That despite us not understanding all the word structures of their language, we can still understand them. Now take note of this, everybody. Always remember this. With this or without this, without comprehensible input, there is no L2 acquisition. Again, let me repeat that. Put it in your mind. Okay? For this, without comprehensible input, there will be no language, second language rather. So what does it mean? Let's explore about this note that I have given you. All right. Language teaching, does it help? Classroom should help to the extent it supplies comprehensible in an environment conducive to low filter. To paraphrase it, it means language teaching helps us in what? In guiding the learner, us or future students, into acquiring the basics of the language, such as the correct grammar or such language. So, as easy as that, language teaching is a guide to all our future students. Whenever we teach in the basics of language. The examples are there, right? On how we can be fluent, on how we can construct a proper sentence, or how we construct from that language that we use. So does it help? That's the question. Now, let's go first on the language teaching that helps. Okay? When language teaching helps, it acts as the main source of the lower comprehensible input for beginners and for foreign language students who do not had the chance to get input outside the class. So it helps us. For example, there is a lot of, this is true to life people. There is neighboring countries who is going here in our country, in our nation, to learn English. Not just because our tuition is low and they can afford it, but because, we become the main source of the low for them. Because of the way we teach the second language, they are able to understand it and use it as well in their future professions. So that's great. That is an example of that when the language teaching helps. And actually, I have here that the language teaching helps people. No? According to Breyer, 1978, according to his research, Spanish as a second language among 920 American children, ages 4 to 12, and discovered that language is acquired through what? Four actions. Since the village school is the major source of comprehensible input and the opportunities outside the classroom are not plentiful. So see, language teaching helps in a way that there is a major source of comprehensible input, which is in a form of what it is said here, formal instruction. So that is when the language teaching helps. Another research, the language teaching helps. Let's have from the research of Chihara and Holler from 1978. About this research, their subjects were Japanese, all right? Those who answered earlier in our icebreaker for their second language to be Japanese, wow. Arigato gozaimasu. Their subjects were Japanese studying English. as a foreign language in Japan. A clear foreign language in which the classroom was the main source of comprehensible input. See, language teaching helps it only if it is the main source and there is deficiency around it. They learn from the community, they cannot learn from other places, but only on that main source, which is for the most of time is a school, all right, is a class. But now let us conclude this. It's part of where language teaching helps. The main point here is this. No? It proves that formal instruction, which is our comprehensible input, is vital or important, especially if it provides the input learners can utilize in using language. So this is just the glimpse of it. This is just the summary of it. If you heard many words earlier, this is just the conclusion of that. Language teaching helps us because it has this main the formal instruction, and then the formal instruction provides a comprehensible input, and then with that, learners utilize this to use the language they have learned. So that's why I gave the definition earlier of comprehensible input. It makes them so little, even though they don't know the whole language or the whole structure of it. So that is language teaching helps. But how about when language teaching does not help? Simple as this. It does not help when rich sources of input are available. If there is a lot of no sources of comprehensible input, it's not just the main. That's why when we say main, it's the focal, it's the center, or it's the only source of comprehensible input. That's why we said main source earlier. But now, language teaching does not help if there are rich sources of input that is available. Now, I have researchers to prove that. From the research of Fatman, 1975, says here, it is hypothesized that the children are getting a comprehensible input from the school and playground, and extra input L did not make a difference. So see, to other countries, it will be a help if there is only one main source, which it may be the ESL class. But in this case, in the research of Fatman, they have the school and the playground. Wow. So it's part of the community. People learn, the students learn from a lot of. This is why they can really utilize whatever comprehensible input they absorb to use the language and not just use it, but use it fluently. So this is great. This is great, but language teaching does not help here. Next, it does not help when what? According to Hale and Budar 1970, again, this is when language does not help. It says here in their research, the first group with no ESL class actually made better English than those who are enrolled to ESL class. Have you ever remember, or do you remember the video that was presented in the reporting last before this is posted, our synchronous class? Some of our classmates who presented, they shown a video of KMJS wherein there are youngsters who fluently speak in English, but they are not enrolled in any ESL class or like English school, right? But they are fluent in English. See, because they have a lot of source. for the girl, if you remember the video, her source, her main source is the grandmother, right? So you see here, this is when the language teaching does not help because other people excel even without ESL class. This is my point. Even let's say every one of us will have a family, they will have a whatever children, and you will enroll them in a prestigious, right, or exclusive school that is English only. Even the school has a rule of having English only or teaching the English language alone. It does not guarantee. It does not guarantee the full learning of the student, especially when there are other sources. Especially when there are other sources. Look at what I said here. Language teaching does not help when rich sources if of input are available. So yeah, so that's it. Conclude that, no, we can conclude that the language teaching helps second language acquisition, right? Realization. Language teaching helps second language acquisition only when it applies comprehensible input. So when it does not, and if there's a lot of sources, people, there's a lot of influences, no, it does not help. But in this case, it helps. This is the true cause acquisition. That's why I've said earlier, now you will get my point. Now you will get what I noted. It says here, ayan, without comprehensible input, there is no second language acquisition. Why it is important to have comprehensible input, and this is undergoing the language teaching only when there is a main source. That's a recap. And of course, it does not help when rich sources, not just simple source, but really rich people fluent. There's a lot of them, no? A lot of sources are available. Then language teaching does not help. So that is my part in this presentation. And let me give back the microphone to Miss Kaya. Take it away.
Okay, so let's talk about exposure variable. According to Schumann's acculturation hypothesis, says acculturation is the major causal variable in SLA, or the second language acquisition. Number two is second language acquisition is just one aspect of acculturation, and the degree to which the learner acculturates to the target language group will control the degree to which he acquires the target language. So here we are talking about the LOR, or length of residence, and with the same reference, length of residence has an indirect impact to a layer when it comes to second language acquisition. Because again, the three causative variables are the comprehensible input and the low filter. Next slide po. So the next factor is age. Krashen, Long, and Scarcella, 1979, reviewed that available empirical research on the effect of age and the second language acquisition, and concluded that all published studies are consistent with this three generalization. Next po. The first one is adults proceeds through early stages of syntactic and morphological development faster than children, where time and exposure are held constant. The second one is older children acquire faster than younger children, again in early stages of morphological and syntactic development, where time and exposure are held constant. The number three is acquirers who begin natural exposure to second languages during childhood generally achieve higher second language proficiency than those beginning as adults. So, those are the three generalizations drawn from their researches. It has been popularly assumed that age itself is a predictor of second language proficiency, that younger acquirers are better at second language acquisition than older acquirer. Next po. Next po. So this is the example of supporting study evidences, or you may see the LOR. It means the length of residence, and LE is linguistic environment, CI for comprehensible input. Next po. So we have the another factor we called acculturation. Lastly, Krashen mentioned that other proponents suggest that acculturation is the major causal variable in second language. So as they say that it's one of the causes of second language acquisition, and acculturation is acculturation can be viewed as means of gaining comprehensible input and lowering affective filter. Krashen explained that social integration with resulting contact leads to comprehensible input, while the open psychological state Schumann refers to is equivalent to a low filter. So that will be all of our report. Again, I am Kyla Valenzuela.
Again, I am Paulo Angelo Albay, and thank you for listening to our presentation. God bless us all, and Merry Christmas.